Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. Her name is Sylvia Wolfer. Mrs. Sylvia, how are you doing, ma?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking, and thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Also, I want to thank you for the time and the opportunity, Mrs. Sylvia. Firstly, you are a grief guide and mindfulness practitioner. Can you please, Mrs.
Yes,
Sylvia, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mrs. Sylvia?
yes, of course. So I will share with you a little bit of my life story because this is what has led me to do my work. So, grief is something that I have been exposed to throughout my life. My dad died when I was 7. And then a few years later, my younger brother died very suddenly when we were teenagers. And later in life, my older brother died very suddenly in a car accident. And only recently, my mom passed. So that's basically, we were a family of 6, and there's only 2 of us left, me and my brother now. So grief has been a companion throughout my life. And when my older brother died recently, what came as an extra layer of pain was that recognition that I had lived so many years, even decades, with unaddressed grief. And because I was so on edge all the time, I felt like I had missed out on moments where I could have been more mindful with my older brother. And I was very angry at life, but also at myself. I felt like I had failed because had I addressed my grief, had I looked after myself and attended to the wound of grief, I would have been able to enjoy time with my brother more. So, what grief taught me in a very brutal way is that people die, but that's the first part of the story because other people will die. And this is often what we are not prepared for. And because in my life, I've decided to make it my life mission to help people not go through the same type of situation and just show people that it is possible not to erase grief because it will always be painful and always be present, but to live alongside of it, to live with loss and love, and to live with joy and sadness, that they go hand in hand, and a good life is still possible after a terrible loss.
It is not easy. 100% relate. It is not easy. Going to your brother, elder,
No.
younger, mother, it's not easy. It is really, really uneasy. And it will also give you it has also given you the sense to build a sense of humility and also make people to understand how they can navigate grief and how they can also try their best to work on it. It shouldn't be something that is over us. And as you said, we are not always prepared for the worst. We are not always prepared for the next person who is
No.
going to leave us. Nobody knows tomorrow. Nobody knows who is living again. And that is the beauty. We just have to know how we can work on ourselves and see how we can live a life whereby, despite the grief, we are able to love ourselves. We are able to give ourselves the sense of embrace. And we're able to, come out and relate to people because that is also a source of healing as well. And also, Mrs. Sylvia, with the experience you've had when it comes to grief, yours is even really huge. You'll be the first person I've heard this kind of huge. Have you written any book or have you planned to write any book in the coming future, Mrs. Sylvia?
No, not yet. Thank you so much for asking though, but that is my plan. This is going to be my plan for 2026 to write a book about that because I can just sense the urgency of bringing the conversation about grief out there and giving people hope that it's possible, that you can be genuinely happy even though you've been through many losses in your life. So the
Beautiful.
book is on the to-do list. Absolutely, yes.
Definitely be on plan. I sincerely appreciate that. And I also like to drive to the point of the people and also the listeners that will listen to this episode. When it comes to grief, when it comes to stress, some people do not know how to differentiate it. Some people do not know how to know if they are actually stressed or it is a source of the grief they are passing through is what is making their body to feel really, really stressed and really drained. So many listeners feel symptoms they can't explain. How do you think someone tell the difference between stress and grief showing up in the body, Mrs. Silva?
Yeah, this is a very good question. And I think you already brought to the conversation a very important point that is very often overlooked. And it is that grief lives in the body. It is not just an emotional or a mental experience, but our body reacts and our brain reacts. Our brain can changes, our brain is changed like it would be from a proper concussion, from a proper shock. So the physical changes are real, and the stress that follows grief is very intense. So it is difficult to make the difference between what is stress, what is grief, because I would say that grief is a form of stress, but just a very high intensity stress. And I don't know if you've heard about that principle in psychology that is called the window of tolerance, where we have a window of tolerance and we will always have stress in life. It's always going to be up and down. That's just how it is. We don't live in a fairy tale. But when we are within the window of tolerance, we can manage the stress. We can take it. We get the stress and then we relax, and then we're stressed and then we relax. But sometimes when the stress is really intense, like it is for grief, well, then we go out of our window of tolerance. And when we go above, we are irritable, we are anxious, we feel restless, we can get angry more easily, we are panicking more easily. And when we go below, it's the opposite. We feel lethargic, we have no energy, nothing is interesting, we just feel sad, we don't want to do anything. So these two extremes are really signs that we are outside of our window of tolerance when it comes to stress, and that this is a level of stress that needs to be addressed.
Thank you so much. It shows that the body definitely has its upside, it's also the downside as well. We just have to know how we can work on ourselves better so that we will not be in a position whereby we are stressed out or we are using the grief that we have to, have this physical body, because the physical body is the one that it will affect. It will affect the physical body. And when we realize that, it's like I feel like I get angry easily, I do things more easily, I get stressed easily, I get tired easily. Sometimes I'm not even motivated. Those are always signs that are both. We are giving ourselves too much tension. And that is why we are, as a person who has, who is facing grief or who is facing stress or who has a lot of anxiety, we need to know how to free ourselves out, bring ourselves out to nature. It is very important. It's so that it will let all those things that are burdening us to come out freely, because those are the things that will make us to feel more comfortable in the life of comfort. And I also like to dive to the point of the nervous system, how it respond to grief. How do you think nervous system do respond to grief? And what do you think it mean for listeners who feel constantly tired, overwhelmed, or on edge? Mrs. Sylvia.
Yes, and these are typical symptoms, feeling tired, overwhelmed, on edge, having no energy. And the nervous system gets into a position, into a symptom of long stress. It is like a threat for the nervous system because everything changes so drastically. The whole life changes when someone close to us dies. Our routines are different, our expectations are different, our world is different. And this feels like a threat to the body. And this is why we store tensions a lot in the upper body, in the shoulders, the chest, the back, because this is also where we have a lot of nerves. The nerves all come from the brain, and this is where we have a lot of nerve, and they tense up also to protect our vital organs like the heart, the lungs. So it's a normal reaction from the body, but it's not to be overlooked. It's really important to address the body. And I would even argue that the body is quite often the first place, the first go to help soften the heart and the soul, because they are so linked that if we manage to reset the body slightly, it will then have a ripple effect on our emotions. So you want to do simple things, really basic things like a routine. And these are things, they sound very simple, but they're extremely difficult for someone who is grieving. So you want to have a routine. And I'm not saying rituals, just a routine, trying to get out of bed at the same time, trying to eat at the same time. Appetite can be completely dysregulated. This is also the nervous system. Well, try to eat small meals and to eat real food, because often people just snack on junk food or they forget to eat, and we don't think that it can have an impact, but it does. So trying to stay hydrated, trying to eat well, trying to have a bedtime routine, because again, when grief hits, sleep is completely disrupted. So trying to, just brush your teeth at the same time, have that little routine in the evening, dim the lights, have a cup of tea. The nervous system responds really positively to routines, to repetition. Whatever we do repetitively makes us feel safe. The familiar feels safe. So, this is something you can start with through the body, taking care of the body and going outside. You mentioned that earlier today. And this is also applicable to going outside in nature, reconnecting with nature, sometimes just a walk, like not too much effort, just go out, walk around the block, come back, walk, down the street, come back home. Simple things like that will help you soothe your nervous system.
I sincerely appreciate this beautiful insight, Mrs. Sylvia. It goes back to force and energy. When we give positive energy to the body, when we give positive energy to the soul that we have, it brings back the motivation and it brings back the strength that we need. And it also makes our body more stronger. But if we are given repeated signal, repeated trauma, pain, it continues to make situation more worse. And that is way to get to a point whereby we go to bed, we don't sleep. It's not just working, but we have to do routines that brings positivity, as you said, that brings back the energy. Going out, having a workout, all those things brings back those energy back to us to be in a position whereby we can feel the sense of healing. Because when we start to heal or when we start to see the changes in our body, we see it, we feel it in our body, we see our body become more lighter, we realize that our body become
Yes,
more different as well.
yes,
A lot of changes will happen in the body. And that is when we realize that I think these routines that I am doing is actually working, because routines works for different people. We are all different beings. We need to look
yes,
for the routine that actually works for us. So when we see those routines that works for us, we are in a position whereby we cannot plan ahead and give those positive energy and force to help us to heal more faster and better, because it is always not easy and we don't want to get stranded. It's not easy to get stranded in a position whereby we feel down, unable to sleep, and we're unable to do anything, even motivated to do anything. We do not want to get to that certain stage. So we need to build a lot of
you're right.
boundaries. We call it bridges as well. And also, I would
Yes.
like to dive to the point of areas where people fear if they slow down or pause. When someone has gotten to a position whereby they've healed, they are building the routine, they're doing every single thing they can do, and now they feel like if I slow down or pause from all these things, what will happen? All these things that have been happening or all these pains will just come back again. So all the emotions they've been suppressing will come in rushing in. They might be worried about that. So how do you think listeners can safely begin to feel grief in their bodies without being overwhelmed by it, Mrs. Sherry?
This is such a good question. And I think you're going to touch the hearts of many because most people will be able to relate to that. Before I answer this question, I just want to quickly go back to something that you said because you made a really important point here. And I want to emphasize it when you said that we should try to figure out what works for us. And I couldn't agree more. You're right. We're all different individuals, and there is no right, no wrong. Someone will benefit from a certain sleep routine, someone will benefit from a certain type of food they're going to eat every morning. So thank you for mentioning that. Everyone should really try out things and then figure out what works for them. You're right. So coming back to your other question, this is very common for anyone who suffered in life, for grief, but also heartbreaks. And these things are part of life. We don't go through life without these sufferings. And we have a tendency to numb ourselves and to try to avoid these emotions. And that numbness is something that kicks in very early, very often with people who grieve. So that can be, you might have experienced it, people who will repeat the story of how someone died, and they will repeat that same story over and over again with exactly the same words. And so they're almost detaching from it. They're almost numbing themselves so that the emotion doesn't hit them or ambush them. So, this is obviously something that is not going to work long term. Grief is like a wound, and it's a deep wound, it's a big wound. And if you don't attend to the wound, if you look away, it's going to fester. It's going to be infected, and it's not going to just heal on its own. So you have to tend to the wound. And we all know that it is uncomfortable. It is painful when someone removes the bits that are in the wound and clears the wound and maybe stitches the wound together. This is all painful work. But we can't avoid it. If we avoid it, it's going to be worse. So, what will be there at the end? It's not going to disappear. There will be a scar, and that scar will always be tender. And there's always a risk that if something or someone pokes the scar, it will be a bit more painful than if it was poking another area of life. But that fear that emotions might be overwhelming and overcoming us is completely rational and understandable. There's nothing wrong, and it's not a weakness to hide away from these emotions because they are very painful. So, what I do recommend sometimes, and people are usually very surprised by that advice, but it happens to work for most people. You can try to schedule time for your grief. So you literally, just like you would make an appointment with yourself, you would say, okay, tonight I'm going to take 10 minutes, I'm going to light a candle, put a song on, and I'm just going to look at some pictures of the person that I've lost. I'm just going to make room for grief. And this is not going to be life changing after one or two times, but it will give your brain that signal that it doesn't have to come by surprise, because you will have these compartments where you let grief in gently, slowly. And by doing that little by little, you're less afraid of these waves because you know you can kind of postpone. So you don't avoid it, but you're like, okay, not now. This is not a good moment. Let's do that later tonight when we're at home, relaxed. It is still scary and it is still very uncomfortable, but growth and healing happen only through discomfort. I'm sure your audience knows that better than anyone.
Thank you so much. To be honest with you, what you just said correctly now, if one actually want to work on something like this, one will really be humble. Humility is going to be there because it is not easy, but we have to practice it. When we practice these little things, what it does, it makes us to be in a position whereby we can give a pass through our mind, to make our mind be acknowledged by this kind of situation we've passed through. This person we do love so much that left us so unexpectedly, those kind of things, we digest it. And there's nothing more beautiful than that. If we can be in a position whereby we see something that really hurts us and we can digest it and accept it, I think we'll be in a position whereby we can deal with grief. And if we can deal with grief, I think we can be in a position to find it very, very easy to bring in positive energy without no issue. We won't be in an issue whereby we'll be like, I don't want to. We've accepted it, we've digested it, let the positive energy come in. And that is the beauty. We just have to try our best to be. And I sincerely appreciate the beautiful insights regarding that perspective, Mrs. Sher. Also, I
Thank
would
you.
like to drive to the point of movement, which also plays a big role in healing. So, what do you think are some of the simple, accessible movement practices? I do know you spoke about, having pictures and stuff, but what do you think are some of the simple, accessible movement practices that you think listeners can carry and try at home when grief feels heavy in their body, Mrs. Sher?
Yes, thank you for mentioning the body because this is really a big part of my work, which is not always present in grief support, to use the body. And this comes back to what we were mentioning earlier, eating healthy foods, staying hydrated, trying to have a sleep routine. This is all taking care of the body because the body will be the pathway to the brain and the heart. And the body will also help through movement. And the most basic movement is breath. We forget that sometimes, but a deep breath is movement. There's a lot of movement happening in the body already. And sometimes when nothing else is accessible, if you're stuck in a meeting, if you're in bed just restless, but you don't want to wake up the rest of the family, you can start by breathing. And the best way to do so is to place your hand on your belly button. And when you inhale, you push your belly against your hand. And then you just relax on the exhale, right? You can do that. And then you can lengthen your exhale. And if you want to count, sometimes counting can help. If you inhale, let's say for a count of 3, you exhale for a count of 6. So you want to always try to exhale for a little bit longer than the inhale. It calms the nervous system. And then you can do simple things like rolling the shoulders, to get rid of the tension a little bit, backwards and forwards, and moving the head from side to side, going for a walk outside. This is always super beneficial. And you can also do some cat cow stretches, on the floor, and just whatever feels good. There's no right, no wrong, or twisting your body side to side. The important thing here is to be non judgmental. Don't try to rationalize your movement. Just tune in, and whatever feels good in that moment, do it. But try to move. Try not to stiffen up and tense up. Um, in a wave of grief. Try to give yourself the blessing of movement.
Thank you so much because this is very great for someone who is probably, isolated or probably feeling alone, who doesn't have people around him or her most of the time, because these are things that we can do on our own. We can move our body, stretch our body, try our best to energize the body. Don't let us stay one place. When we stay one place, it gives those grief, those kind of pain, it gives it the opportunity to penetrate in us very, very well, and it won't help us. So let's just make things, just keep ourselves busy, do something that will make us happy, breathe in. There's nothing more beautiful than spending time to just breathe in and breathe out. Those things just, it release a lot of pressure in us. Those little things really count. And if we can continue to do that with time and with energy, despite the situation we're passing through, despite the person that we do love or we do care for that we've lost, it will really help us to actually get back on board and become much stronger in the life we find ourselves. And also, I also like to just drive to the point of listeners who feel alone, as we said earlier. Some people are feeling alone in their grief. It is not easy to feel alone. Some people have companions, some people have friends, but some people, by the time they miss their friends, their family, they are back alone again, probably with a partner or someone they really care about. So, how do you think reconnecting with their body really help them rebuild a sense of safety, trust, and self-compassion, Mrs. Sylvia?
Yes, yes, yes. And in terms of loneliness, the body can also be a very helpful guide because loneliness can be a very strong part of grief, even when there are many people around. You can feel very lonely in a crowd
Wow.
because people can get a bit intimidated and uncomfortable around grief. They don't know what to say, not because they mean bad, because they are worried they might say the wrong thing, they might hurt you even more by saying something. So it doesn't come from a bad place, and they shy away from it, but it can make the person grieving, feel extremely lonely. So a good thing is to try to surround yourself with people that your nervous system feels good with. You can trust your body. You will sense it within you. Some people will take the energy out of you, they will tense you up, they will not make you feel good. And some other people, you will just feel calm and relaxed and just more safe around them. And quite often, it is not the people we think. Grief puts
Hmm.
everything upside down. And sometimes you might be surprised that the person of which you thought was your best friend is actually not showing up. And the person who was your barista will start to be, the most thoughtful and kind person. So be open to that and be non judgmental with how you feel around people. If you feel super safe around someone that you maybe even didn't like before, doesn't matter. Just go there. Just go where your body tells you, I feel good here. And sometimes, even your parents can be very irritating, or your neighbors, or don't judge. It doesn't mean you don't love them. You just need to take care of yourself and give yourself grace and just do what feels good in that moment.
Sincerely appreciate this. To be honest with you, I sincerely appreciate this. You know, Grief is very difficult to actually heal, and these are one of the things that we can do for ourselves. I know sometimes, even most especially people that are introverted, it is not easy, but we have to try our best to be around people that we do know. Just be open book, try your best to, as you said, to talk to people, just be open, because those that we do not even put mind into has to be beautiful. That's just the beauty, are even the ones we feel more comfortable with. And that is why we have to be very, very open with people. Just discuss, have dialogue, speak with people. People that we do not even expect are the ones that will like, wow, I like this person. Let us communicate. Let us be
Yes,
there. And we have to kink in that energy and continue to develop that. When we develop that, we see the changes in the body. The nervous system, it responds very positively. And it's also one source that can help us also become more stronger and heal, because it's not easy. When someone actually lose someone very close, it's very, very much not easy. And it can make us really much more isolated as a person. We have to try our best to loosen ourselves up. It is not easy, but we need to loosen ourselves up. If we can do that,
yes.
I think we'll be in a position whereby things will become more better, and we can also live more fulfilled and more happier in the coming future. And also, Mrs. Silva, there is also a question I normally ask during the end of the show, Mrs. Sylvia, from our forefathers, from our ancestors. there are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mrs. Silva, what do you think that thing will be, Mrs. Sylvia?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think probably just, sitting together and talking, sitting together and talking, because with our busy lives, we don't really get a chance to slow down and to talk in real life, to have a proper communication. And human beings are tribe animals. We are wired to be in a tribe, in a group, and we feel at our best when we are surrounded by people. Even if we think we're introvert and even if we think we love being alone, we actually feel better around people. And there have been studies, and it's quite interesting, that show that the best thing to do to feel better for people who don't feel good is to go somewhere where there are other people, even if you don't talk to them, but to just be surrounded by other human beings. Again, it helps our internal system to feel safer. So, yes, I would say that just sitting together and talking, intergenerational conversations where the grandparents and the grandchildren all sit together to talk. And coming back to the previous point you made, again, I want to emphasize this because I really loved how you phrased that we should dare to loosen up and go towards other people. And I think you're right, because human beings by nature are kind. Human beings are very caring. We had to be a caring species to survive. Otherwise, we would have died. We were relying on other people's care and support and protection. There was just no way around. So, we do have a very strong rewarding system for kindness. Being kind feels very good. So, for the people who feel lonely and stuck in grief, if you have the energy, try to talk to people. You will be surprised. I couldn't imagine someone not wanting to be there for you if you say, listen, you know what? I miss my person very much. Do you mind if I tell you a bit about that person? Anyone will be really happy to say, oh, please, yes, go ahead. People are kind. So sometimes, even if it feels like a barrier, if we open up, it's very rare that someone on the other side will say, oh, no, just leave me alone. You handle, deal with it on your own. That's very, very unlikely. People are kind.
Yes, we have a lot of kind people out there. I
Yes.
think most of the mistake people make is they go online, social media, doing what they know they can do. And those kind of energy are mostly not really found there. I think social media is something that just came up. Now we are starting to build bridges. It is something that is still developing to build a lot of bridges when it comes to people where we can find support, love, and also getting to know each other. It is something that it is still being built. But if we go out there, go to the positive community, go to areas, just be around people, it is not easy. As I said, most especially someone who really understands grief, it is not always easy, but we have to loosen ourselves up. It helps us heal better. It helps us to be in a position whereby we feel more better. Let's just open up, loosen up, and try to speak to people and communicate with people. We do know with the kind of development we have today, we do hope that more connection, physical connection, communication, and also people who are really kind to continue to emerge in the life we find ourselves so that they can be the one that can speak for the ones who are just down and really, really weakened. Also, Mrs. Silva, I want to use this opportunity to thank you for the time and the opportunity that you've given to me today. It is not easy. I 100% hope you are strong again. You are battling every single thing and you've actually won and you are now happy again. It is not easy. Honestly speaking, to those, all those people around you, it's not easy. Thank you so much, Mrs. Silva.
Thank you so much for having me today. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Silva. Have a wonderful day, Mrs. Silva. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye bye.